again. I'm coming to you today from the office of our youth minister, Brandon Massey. As you can tell from his color scheme as well as some of the decor in his office, he is an avid New Orleans Saints fan. He loves the Saints. And of course we know in our contemporary language love takes a number of meanings. We can love ice cream, we can love the Saints, we can love our spouse, we can love God. All these different meanings that are tied to the word love. We're going to be looking today in 1 John chapter 4, verses 4 through 7, and looking at one specific kind of love. We'll notice in just those 6 verses that the word love, or a form of the word love, is used 13 times. And that's one of the themes that John uses quite a bit in not only this book, but in the book of John as well, is love and light, two main themes. But here we're looking at love, and we're looking at that agape love. I know you've heard the 3 different Greek words for love. There's phileo, which is the brotherly love. This is the word we get the city name Philadelphia from, meaning, of course, the city of brotherly love. And then there's the romantic love, or eros. That's, of course, where we get the word erotica from. And then there's agape. That's the noun, or agapao is the verb form of that word, meaning that godlike, selfless love. And that's exactly what we're looking at here in 1 John chapter 4 this week. In 1975, I was a 14-year-old junior high student, and I remember that summer there was a new group that came out with this song, the Captain and Tennille, Love Will Keep Us Together. That song was #1 on the charts, I believe, for about 4 weeks. It was the top song of 1975. And what's ironic is just in recent weeks, we've heard that the Captain and Tennille have gotten a divorce. And so it's not that romantic love, it's not that eros that keeps us together. It's agape that really keeps us together, and that's how we are known as Christians, is the God's love that is in us and that we show toward each other. Now there's a couple of points that I want to elaborate on and point out to you, maybe some thoughts for you to ask your class about. Certainly don't have time to go over the entire lesson, but just a couple of points for you to think about today. One thing I want to point out to you is that if you have a King James Version and you're reading along, and in verse 10 you'll see one of those high-dollar theological words. It's propitiation. If you're using the NIV, it'll use the term atoning sacrifice. And basically propitiation is a twofold process where God is appeased, his wrath is appeased, and then 2, we are then justified to him. Now, in pagan cultures and pagan religions, there was a propitiation process as well. And it was more of a bribery. Let's say it's not raining, and we're having a drought. And in the pagan religions, they would sacrifice people or whatever other sacrifices to bribe or appease the gods, and hopefully they would smile then and allow the rain to come. That, of course, has nothing to do with Christianity. In Christianity, God provided the sacrifice. God propitiated his own wrath by sending Christ. And I believe Romans 5:8 really sums this up very well. It says, "But God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." And that's the kind of agape love that we're supposed to have for each other. We're supposed to love the unlovely. I know some of us may be a little unlovely at times and hard to love. And Christians can be, unfortunately, a little harsh, a little unloving, even to their own sometimes. So we have to be very careful about that. In fact, that goes completely against what Jesus commanded in John chapter 13, verse 34. He says, "A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this all men will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." In fact, when Jesus was asked, what is the greatest command, how did he respond? Matthew 22, verses 37 through 40 tells us that he said this: "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it: love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these 2 commands." as you look through your lesson book, you see that the main point that is supposed to be gotten across in this lesson is that God's love, His agape love for me, empowers me to love other people. So how can we practically do that? I think if we back up just a chapter, look a few verses back, we'll see in 1 John chapter 3, verses 16 through 18, John gives us some very practical advice here. He says, "This is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down His life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers. If anyone has material possessions and see his brother in need but has no pity on him, how can the love of God be in him? Dear children, let us not love with words or tongue, but with actions and in truth." So we're not just supposed to say we have love. We're supposed to have something to back it up. We're supposed to do something, have some actions. So just a couple of things maybe to ask your class, especially as you're starting to wrap up the class. Give them some things to think about. Number one, make the statement, if you consistently have a hateful attitude towards people, it's time to honestly examine your relationship with God. Because based on these verses, we're to love people. And I know we slip sometimes, we can be angry, but if we consistently have that hateful attitude, we need to honestly examine our relationship with God. Also, let me read to you out of the text that we have in today's lesson, verse 12. It says this, "No one has ever seen God, but if we love one another, God lives in us, and His love is made complete in us." That may seem a little odd to throw in the phrase that no one has ever seen God, but think of it like this. No one has ever seen God's essence. No one's ever seen God face to face, so to speak. But we have seen the effects of God. We have seen what He can do. Just like we've never seen the wind, but we can see the effects of the wind. So just another question to ask your class is, what is something you can do this week to show God's love to other people so that they can see God in your actions? So that's all I've got for you this week. Next time we'll be looking at another characteristic of God, and that is His being just. So, hope to see you Sunday.